So welcome again to our class this morning. And I will begin with a brief revision of what we studied together last class. As I mentioned to you, each of the Vedas has a Shanti mantra or a peace prayer. And these are the peace prayers that are also used at the beginning of each of the Upanishads, the dialogues that are connected with, that are part of that particular Veda. So when we studied last class, we were looking at the prayer from the Kena Upanishad. So I would like to just recite the prayer with you. Om apyayantu mama angani vak pranaschakshu srotra matho balam indriyani cha sarvani maham brahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakarod anirakaranam astvanirakaranam me astu tadatmani nirate ya upanishadsu dharmaste mei santu te mei santu. So in this very beautiful prayer of the Kena Upanishad, we see at least three important insights. There's a threefold purpose in this prayer. The first is for our physical well-being as students and teachers. Apyayantu mama angani. May all the limbs of our bodies, may all the sense organs and the organs of action be healthy and vigorous. And so the text mentions those organs of action and organs of knowledge. Vak, the organ of speech; prana, the respiratory system; chakshuhu, the eyes; srotra, the air; ataha balam indriyani cha sarvani. May all the organs and limbs of our bodies be healthy, vigorous, free from disease. May they not, in other words, we pray that may our health not be an impediment to our learning together. Secondly, the prayer is also for the elimination of mental and emotional obstacles that impede our learning. So the teacher and the students pray, Maham Brahma Nirakuryam, Mama Brahma Nirakarod, Anirakaranam Astvanirakaranam me astu. So may I not prematurely reject Brahman, reject the subject about which we are learning. May I not come to false conclusions before I study this text. And such conclusions may arise from the arrogance of the students, or because Brahman, the infinite, is a very different kind of reality. It is not available for seeing like other objects are. One might come with an attitude of cynicism or rejection. So basically, the prayer is, may I come with an open mind. May I come with a mind that is truly committed to understanding and to inquiry. Not that one should not ask questions, but one should ask questions with an open mind. And finally, tad atmani nirate ya upanishadsu dharmaste mei santu te mei santu. So we who are tad atmani nirate, we who are devoting ourselves this morning to the study of the infinite one, here the word atman is used, the self, tad atmani nirate, upanishadsu dharmaha. So again, we see upanishadsu dharmaha. May those virtues, dharmaha, those ethical virtues that are taught in the Upanishads like, ahimsa, non-violence, satya, truth, daya, compassion, and so on. Te mei santu. May these virtues abide in us, abide in teacher and student. Knowledge is not possible in this tradition without the cultivation of virtue. And knowledge always expresses itself in virtue. So virtue is both the means to knowledge, and then virtue is also an expression of knowledge, an expression of wisdom. And so I shared with you last class the verse of the Kena Upanishad, speaking as all Upanishads do. This is why the prayer says, "Ye Upanishadsu dharmaha." In the Upanishads, all of the Upanishads, these virtues are taught. So in Kena Upanishad, there is a very famous line, "Na virato duscharitan," that this knowledge will not be gained by someone who has not turned away from evil actions. So someone who is adharma, na ashanta, it will never be known in the mind that has not cultivated peace. So here we see also, Yad Upanishad Su Dharmaste. May all the virtues of the Upanishad abide in us as teacher and student. And so we were getting into the first verse of Kena Upanishad in our last class, and I would like to go back to that verse. The verse begins with the question. This is the tradition of the Upanishads, that the student is always allowed to ask the question. This is how the teacher knows what is on the student's mind, and therefore the teacher can respond appropriately to the inquiry of the student. So the question is as follows: Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha, kena prana prathama praiti yuktaha, kene shitam vacham imam vadanti chakshu srotram ka u devo yunakti. So the student is asking, Kene shitam patati preshitam manaha. Mana means the mind in Sanskrit. Manas or manaha is the mind. And manaha represents all mental functions. So mana, mind, prana, which is also used in this verse. Prana represents all the physiological functions of the body. Speech represents all the organs of action. And then the eyes and the ears represent the sense organs. So in this verse, the totality of the physical body and the mind is described. So the student is not asking or seeking information about the biological functioning of the sense organs or the organs of action or the brain. It's not a question about neurology. There's a different, as we will say, there's a different source of knowledge. If that is the question, there's a different, to use the Sanskrit word, there's a different pramana. So the Upanishad does not attempt to provide knowledge that can be gained through other sources, knowledge that is obtainable through other pramanas. So in this case, if it's a physiological question, we have the scientific method of perception and inference. The question is a deeper question. And the question also reveals that the student is not, as we will say, is not a freshman, is not a first-year student. There's a very deep suspicion on the part of the student, the questioner, that the mind, the body, the organs of action in the body, and the sense organs do not function independently, that they have a dependent character. They seem to depend on something else. And so he is asking, what is that? Kau deva yunakti. He calls it a deva. What is that luminous, that shining reality, that luminous reality because of which the body, mind, senses function. In other words, the body complex, the body and mind complex are not self-explanatory. They depend on something else. And so he is asking, what is that? Is there something? He's asking. And if so, please teach me what is that? So I want you to take note of a few words here. You know, as I said, you're always free to write notes for each class for your own purpose. So the body is composed of the elements, the same elements that make up, you know, the tree or the animal, a non-human animal. They are called we speak of these in our tradition as the Pancha Mahabhutas, the, you know, Akasha or space, Vayu, air, Agni, heat, Apaha, water, Prithvi, earth. The body is composed of the 5 bhutas. So in Sanskrit, we say that the body is bhautikam. What is anything that is composed of the 5 elements, the 5 bhutas, we say this object is bhautikam. It is made out of the bhutas, out of the 5 elements. So that's the first thing. Secondly, what is made out of the 5 elements is, in Sanskrit, we say it is inert, means it is not unconscious, it is not conscious. So in Sanskrit, the word for conscious is chetana, chetana. If something is conscious, we say it's chetana. Consciousness itself is also called chetana, it is also called chaitanya. So the body is bhautikam, composed of the 5 elements, and the body is, now we put the negative. So chetana means conscious or consciousness, and achetana means it is not conscious. It is inert. Right? It doesn't have an intrinsic consciousness. It is a chetana. That's 2. Then thirdly, the body is like other things in the world, the body is composed of elements. You know, it is composed of the 5 elements. It's bhautikam. It is achetana. The 5 elements themselves are not conscious. They are achetana. Right? And thirdly, like the elements outside, the body is seen. Right? It is an object. Like I see the tree outside, I am aware of my body. I'm aware of my organs of action. I'm aware of my sense organs. I'm also aware of the thoughts in my mind. So we say that the body is thirdly, it is, in Sanskrit, it is drishyatvam. Drishya means something that is seen. So drishyatvam means that which can be seen. It has a characteristic of an object that is seen. So it is bhautikam, it is composed of the elements. It is achetana, it is inert, not conscious. The elements are not conscious. Thirdly, the elements are seen. They are drishyatvam, they can be seen. And because they can be seen, therefore they have certain kinds of attributes. Right? Like anything outside in nature, it has a form, rupa. It has a touch, sparsha. It has a smell, gandha. It has taste, rasa. So we say, therefore, because it has these attributes, these qualities, we say that it is sagunatvam. Saguna means with qualities. Form, sensation, smell, taste, and so on. So it is sagunatvam. So you're following with me now. It is bhautikam, achetana, drishyatvam, sagunatvam. It has these qualities. And we also know that everything that exists in the world that we see is subject to change. Subject to change. The elements are subject to change. The body, which is made of the elements, is subject to change. So in Sanskrit, and you don't have to worry, I'm just introducing these terms because they're so beautiful terms, but you know, the English equivalent is fine. Knowledge does not depend on the mastery of a language. This teaching of the Upanishad, you know, transcends language. But because the text is in Sanskrit, I'm introducing these terms to you. But I don't want you to think that this is a class this is not a linguistic class. But in Sanskrit, the word change means, the word for change is vikara. Something which changes its state. It has a quality, we describe it as vikara. So the body and the elements outside, we say they are savikaritvam. They have the quality or the characteristic of being subject to change. Savikara. They are with change. Sa means with change. Savikara. And because of that, you know, they come and they go. They have a temporary quality, because change means it doesn't remain the same for all times. There is a certain temporariness to it. It comes, agama paitvam. It comes and it goes. So coming and going is a result of the fact that it is vikara, savikara, that it is subject to change. So the student is thinking, as I said, that the elements outside, you know, the bhutas outside have all of these characteristics, right? They have these characteristics that I have described. You know, they are not conscious, achetana, they are seen, they have qualities, sagunatvam, form, sight, touch. They change, they come and they go. And the body is made out of these same bhutas, these same elements. But I see, I hear, I taste, I touch. There is a plus here. There seems to be something more with this physical body that distinguishes it just from the elements themselves outside. And so he's asking, is it true? And if so, what is that? Kau deva yunakti. Kau deva yunakti. Deva is a very beautiful Sanskrit word also. As I said, you know, it comes from the root div in Sanskrit, which means to shine. Div is the Sanskrit root div has also entered into other languages. So we speak of divine. You know, that also comes from the Sanskrit root div. So kau deva yunakti. What is that? Is there a luminous reality? Is there a light, a deva, because of which the body functions, because of which I see, I hear, I taste, I touch, I move, I breathe? This is the question that the student is asking. And so we get the first answer from the teacher, from the guru, which is the verse 2 of Kena Upanishad. So how does the teacher respond to his student's question? Very beautiful answer he gives him. It's an exquisite answer. So he says here in verse 2, Srotasya srotam, manaso manoyad, vacho havacham, sau pranasya pranaha, chakshusha chakshuhu, atimutya dhiraha, pretyasma lokad amrita bhavanti. This is the first mantra. First mantra means first answer of the teacher in the text. The first mantra is the student's question. The second mantra is the teacher's answer. Srotrasya srotram, manaso manoyad, vacho havacham, sau pranasya prana, chakshusha chakshuhu. So in this first answer, beautiful, he begins his reply to his student's question. And so we just saw the question, what is that enables the mind to think, the breath to flow in and out, the eye to see, the ear to hear, speech to be articulated? What enlivens this body, composed as it is of matter? So he answers in this one beautiful mantra. And here is something very important about this, the Upanishadic method of teaching. I just add this as an aside, since we are studying the text. It's important that we know this also. So this opening answer in Sanskrit, it is called Sankshepa Uttaram. A good teacher in the Upanishadic tradition, in his opening utterance, would give the essence of the teaching. It's called Sankshepa Uttaram. He gives the essence of the teaching in his opening answer itself. So there are three things that we'll see in this verse alone. So here he answers, and of course, he begins to speak about, and I will name it. He doesn't name it. He's beginning to speak about what we know to be the Atma. So in this verse, he tells us about the nature of this Atma. In Sanskrit, he speaks of Atma Swarupa. Swarupa means nature. Atma Swarupa means, he says, what is the nature of the Atma? Atma Swarupa is described. Of course, in describing that, he is giving jnana. So Atma Jnana has been given. He gives Atma Jnana. Jnana means knowledge. So three things. Atma Swarupa he describes. And in doing that, he disseminates Atma Jnana. And thirdly, we'll come to, he mentions the fruit of this knowledge. The fruit, the phala. Sanskrit fruit is phala. So we say in this verse also, what we see, Atma Jnana Phalam. Atma Jnana Phalam. So three things already in these few words. Atma Jnana Swarupa, the nature of the Atma. Atma Jnana itself, knowledge of the Atma. And Atma Jnana Phalam, the fruit of this study, the fruit of this teaching. I mention it, as an aside, but I will be pointing this out as we study this text. We, in the Upanishadic tradition, in the Vedanta tradition, there are a number of things we look for when we try to understand and to come to the right meaning of a teaching. Because when you are studying a text, you want to make sure that you are getting to the right meaning of the text. So in the Vedanta tradition, the lineage, the tradition of study and scholarship, they have identified 6 guidelines. They're called Shad Linga, the 6 signs that you look for when you want to arrive at the meaning of a text, to get to the right meaning of any text. So for example, this is the first verse. This is the beginning. So the teachers say, look carefully to the beginning verse and the last verse, because skillful teachers give particular importance to what they say at the beginning and what they say at the end. So that's called upakrama upasamhara. How does the text begin and how does it end? That may give you a good clue to what the teacher is trying to say. Secondly, you get a good sense of what the teacher is saying and what his text is saying by, the second principle is called abhyasa, repetition. Does the text repeat itself? And if it does so, it means it wants to say something to make sure you don't miss it. So look for where the repetition occurs, abhyasa. So some people say, Professor Rambachan, my students say, he repeats himself a lot. And I say, yes, I do so. I admit it, I confess my reputation as a teacher because I don't want you to miss what is important. So my teaching is also abhyasa. I do repeat myself when I am teaching, and I teach very slowly also. So you look at the beginning, upakrama, upasamhara, what comes at the beginning, what comes at the end. You look for what the teacher repeats. Then there is a third principle. It's very interesting. So we spoke on the first class, you remember, about pramana, about a source of knowledge, a source of valid knowledge that is called pramana. And I said, there are two characteristics of a valid source of knowledge in the tradition. One is that it must not be contradicted. And then the second one, you may remember, I said that the pramana must tell us something novel, new, original, that not any other source of knowledge does not tell us. Otherwise it becomes redundant or becomes repetitive. So you look at what is called apurvata. What is it that this text is telling me that is not known? You look for where is the pramana in this text? Because a text may say many different things, but you ask, where is its originality? Where is its new teaching? Where is it not repeating what is known from other pramanas? Where is its uniqueness? So that's also a principle that we look for. Then next, as I mentioned, the phala or the fruit. You look for what it teaches. What does it mention the result or the fruits of this knowledge? So the phala we look for. Does it praise particular teachings in the text? Arthavada. What is the teaching that the teacher is praising or speaking very highly of? Arthavada. And then the last one is upapatti. What kinds of illustrations, reasoning that the teacher gives in the process of teaching. So as we study the text, I will identify some of these and I'll show you how they operate in Kena Upanishad and how they are used for arriving at right meaning. They are called the Shad Lingas, the 6 signs of reading, the 6 signs for reading or for interpretation, right interpretation of text. So we'll keep that in mind. So now coming to the verse that I just, the second verse, and the teacher's answer to the student's question. Srotyasya srotram manaso manoyad vacho havacham sau pranasya prana chakshusha chakshu. So this is how he answers. But first, I want you to note that by, in fact, giving an answer to the student's question, the teacher, without saying so, because Upanishads, are very conservative, very terse with language. They just maintain the essence of what is to be said because they were meant to be memorized. So without telling the student, you're asking a good question, by giving an answer to the student's question, he confirms that the student's suspicion that there is something more, because of which the body-mind complex function. So in other words, the premise of your question is valid. There is something upon which the body and mind depend for their functioning, and in the absence of which all functioning will cease. There is something. So he validates his student's question in the answer that he gives. That's the first point I want you to note. Secondly, please note that he gives here a description of the Atma, Atma Swarupa, without naming it, without giving it a name. So what does he say? He says, that which you are asking me about, I will describe it to you in this way. What is it? You ask me about, what is it because of which I hear, I see, I talk, I breathe, and so on. So I'm going to describe this to you in the following way. I say it is srotrasya srotram. That about which you are asking me is the air of the air. So srotra means air. So he says, this, I'm describing this to you as the srotrasya srotram, as the air of the air. I'm describing it to you as manaso manoyad. Manasaha, mana, the mind of the mind. Manaso manoyad. Vacho havacham, vak is to speak. It is the speech of speech. So you can put the first one with the uppercase and the second one with the lowercase. The eye of the eye. The air of the air. The speech of speech. Vacho havacham. Sa'u pranasya prana. It is the breath of breath. Pranasya prana. Chakshusha chakshu. The eye of the eye. The eye of the eye. But in all of these answers, he doesn't give it a name. He doesn't use the word Atman even, or the word Brahman. He says it's, as you see, air of the air, mind of the mind, speech of speech, breath of breath, eye of the eye. So why doesn't he give it a name, we might ask? Why doesn't he say, my Shishya, what you are asking me about, it's art. This is Atman. He could have said that, but he didn't. He could have said that it is the Atman because of which you think, it is the Atman because of which you breathe, it is the Atman because of which you see, it is the Atman because of which you hear and you talk. He could have said that. But if he did, he would be giving his student a new word, but would not have helped him to understand anything. Naming it would not help him to understand what Atman is. You know, for example, if you ask me, this is just an arbitrary example I'm giving. If you ask me, how is it that you are speaking on your computer in Minnesota, and I am hearing your voice here in Trinidad, or in Miami, where some of you are, or my colleague Halima is hearing me in Hamburg, Germany. You ask me that question, I can say to you, Wi-Fi. But if I just say Wi-Fi, I'm not really explaining to you how it happens. I'm just giving you a name, but doesn't really explain the whole process. So he doesn't name the reality, but he goes into a very deeper way of describing it, because the purpose of this teaching is not simply to disseminate information to his student, but to help the student understand who the student is. What is his own nature? And so he has to give an answer that takes the student to a place of self-understanding, of knowing who he is. So the difficulty, of simply saying, using a familiar word, the difficulty of using a familiar word, if the teacher said Atman, everyone has a notion of what the Atman is. So everybody will bring his or her own notion to understanding. So he uses something that the student never heard before. He uses language that the student has not, we assume the student has not heard before. Srotrasya srotram, the air of the air. Chakshusha chakshuhu, the eye of the eye. Pranasya pranaha, the breath of the breath, and so on. And there are very important reasons why he speaks in this way, as we will see as we study this text more and more. So instead of giving a new word, he answers in this very unique Upanishadic style. So we may say that he speaks of it as the air of the air. Minimally, we can say It is the air of the air because it is that in the absence of which, or that without which, the air does not hear. It is the air of the air because it is necessary. It's a necessary presence for hearing. It is the eye of the eye, chakshusha chakshuhu, because without it, the eye does not see. Think of all of the, think of the entire verse, the way in which he defines it. The air of the air, the eye of the eye, the speech of speech, vacho havacham, because without it one can't speak. Pranasya prana is the breath of breath, because without which one does not breathe. So we get that minimally from the definition, that this is how we can, this is what you're asking me about, and I'll describe it to you in this way. The air of the air is that without which the air is not an air. It has no ability to receive sounds. Similarly for the eye, the mind, and so on. So in other words, the senses, and here also I include the mind, the senses and the mind are instruments. The senses are instruments for seeing, hearing, tasting, touching. The mind is an instrument for thinking. But these, as instruments, and like all instruments, they do not function in the absence of or without a conscious reality. They are in themselves, as we have seen up. I want you to remember those words. I spoke of the body as composed of the elements, bhautikam, and I said that those elements are also achetana, they are unconscious. So if the elements become conscious, it means that there is a conscious reality. Right? There is a chetana reality. There's a conscious reality in the presence of which these instruments come alive. The senses, the eye see, the air hears, the tongue tastes, the skin feels. They are unable to perform their respective functions in the absence of this chetana, atma. This atma, this conscious atma. So let me give you an example, follow with me. So let's just take, the teacher says that about which you ask is chakshusha chakshuhu. It is the eye of the eye. There is something very beautiful in that answer also, which I will just say, and then I will come back to it later in the text. By describing it as the eye of the eye, chakshusha chakshuhu, the air of the air, srotrasya srotra, pranasya prana, the breath of breath. He's also already telling his student, indicating to the student that which you are asking me about is not out there. It is not a reality that's remote and distant or spatially separate from you. Because it is where the eye is, there it is. Where the air is, there it is. Where the breath is, there it is. It is intimately present with every sense organ, every organ of action. It is not separate from the body. It is present in and through the physical body. But we'll come back to that point. But that's, I think, a very important point in the answer of the student. Halima might remember the powerful Islamic text. It is nearer to you than the jugular vein. Just make that connection. So let us take the example of seeing, the eye of the eye. What do we require for seeing? What are the necessary elements in order for you, in order for I, in order for any one of us to see? So first of all, seeing requires an object. So, book. the object, the drishya, which is the object of sight. Seeing requires an object of sight. So I'm just using the book as an example. So first of all, I must have an object before me, in this case, a book. What else do I need? I need an instrument of seeing. So the instrument in this case are the eyes. We can, even think of other senses, sound and so on, but we need an object, the book. We need the instrument, the eyes. Chakshu, the eye is necessary, the object, drishya. And thirdly, we need an attentive mind, manas. Why am I saying we need an attentive mind? Because I can hold an object before you, and if your mind is elsewhere, you will not see it. Sometimes we say to people, I didn't see you, I was thinking of something else. Or I didn't see it, my mind was elsewhere. So for sight to occur, object, instrument, attentive mind, manas, must be present, otherwise seeing doesn't occur. And if I have to recognize this for what it is, I can see it as an object, but if I have to recognize it for what it is, I also need the right thought. Which means when I look at this, I must know it is a book. It is not an orange. It is not an apple. It is a book. That thought. So the thought that I have in my mind should correspond to what the object is. This is book. So we can call that thought, that right thought, we can call it buddhi. So what do we need? We need the object, the drishya. We need the instrument, the chakshu, the eye. We need the mind to be attentive, manas, and we need the right thought that corresponds to the object. We need the buddhi. But we need the eye of the eye. We need the eye of the eye. We need the fourth factor. You have object, mind, object, instrument, mind, and buddhi, one. There is a fourth factor. So when I say, I see the book, the object is present, the instrument is present, the mind is present, and there is awareness. There is consciousness. There is chetana. There is chaitanya. All these words are synonyms. There is the eye of the eye. There is consciousness present. The eye of the eye is present. In the absence of which, the instrument of seeing, the eye or the mind are just inert. They're just inert, unconscious material, matter. They are enlivened by the fourth factor, the presence of consciousness. Without this, there is no seeing. The object may be present, the instrument may be present, the mind may be present, but there is no seeing in the absence of what the Guru in the Kena Upanishad is calling the eye of the eye. Chakshusha chakshu, of the eye, the eye. Let's imagine let's say you enter into your office and you're looking for your pen. The pen is sitting on your desk, but there is total darkness. The desk and the pen, the room itself is enveloped in total darkness. You will recognize the pen if you see it, but there is no light. Then you put the switch on. You turn on the light in your room, and immediately, in the presence of the light, your eyes see, and you recognize the pen. So in a similar way, it is awareness, you, present in the eye, that makes the act of seeing possible. This is what the teacher doesn't name it, but it is this awareness, this chetana atma, that the Upanishads speak of as Atman. And what we have said about the act of seeing holds here for every other act of perception, every other act of sense perception. Hearing, he says, is the air of the air. You need sound, you need a tympanic membrane and all of that, but you need awareness behind that air in order for sounds to register, for taste in the tongue, for the sensation of touch in the skin. You need, for tasting, you need a taste, you need a tongue, you need a mind, and you need awareness. For sound, you need what? You need, of course, the sound, the air, the mind, and you need awareness. So you can apply that to each of the senses. And it is, he says it's manaso mano, yet it's the mind of the mind. Because in its absence, there is no thinking. Just think of it. There's no thinking without consciousness present in the mind. It is because of this that we know what we think. We are aware of our thoughts. When I ask you what is on your mind, you can tell me because you see what you're thinking. You are aware of your thoughts. Awareness lights up or illumines the mental processes, the mental movement, the thoughts on the mind, and then you can report these to me. So it's also the mind of the mind, he speaks of it. Manaso, mano, yet. So this is what, those of you who studied with me before, I'm teaching Kena now, but before Kena I was teaching Nirvana Shatakam. And you will remember, as I hope you do, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So that word Chit, in that compound Chidananda, is Chit plus Ananda. Chit is also means awareness. Chit means consciousness. That because of which I'm aware of the senses, I'm aware of each sense organ, I'm aware of the body, I'm aware of the mind. Why does he, the student speaks of it as Kau Deva, shining. What is that shining being? He uses the word Deva to describe this awareness, this consciousness. Because as I said, Deva means shining or luminosity. It is what we speak of as Jyoti, light, because it reveals, it makes known everything. So Atma is also called, we speak of Atma Jyoti. Not that Atma has Jyoti as an attribute. Atma itself is, awareness itself is light. It is Jyoti. Bhagavad Gita says, Jyoti Sham Apita Jyoti. Like he says here, the air of the air, the mind of the mind, the eye of the eye. Gita says, the light of all lights. Jyoti Sham Apita Jyoti. It is the light of all lights. If I see the light in my room, now as I'm sitting speaking to you, is because there's a light within me that makes that light known. So it is, I can say it's the light of lights. Jyoti Sham Apita Jyoti, Tamasaf Paramuchyate, beyond all darkness. So in the absence of this awareness, none of the senses, none of the what we call the Jnana Indriyas. Jnana Indriyas or Jnanendriyas is the Sanskrit for sense organs. Karmendriyas is the Sanskrit for organs of action. None of these will work. If Atma is not there, one does not hear, one does not see. But this is important. If the sense organ, so in the absence of the Atman, there is no seeing, there is no hearing, there is no touch, there is no feeling, there is no feeling, there is no thinking. But if the sense organ is defective, if it does not function, if the sense organ does not function or is defective, Atman is. The presence of the Atman, the functioning of the senses depends on the presence of the Atman. But Atman does not depend on the functioning of the senses. So if I close my eyes, I don't see you, but I am aware. I am aware. If I lose my eyesight, it will be a tragedy, but I am aware. I just don't see forms, but I don't cease to be. Atman doesn't cease to be because of sense is defective. If I don't hear well, I know I don't hear well. I know I am aware. So the capacity of the senses does not impede the reality or the presence of the Atman. Atman does not need the senses to be. The senses need the Atman. But Atman exists independently of the senses. That's it. So we say, you know, the relationship is asymmetrical. One is dependent on the other, but the other is independent. One is dependent, one is independent. Atman is independent of the senses. Is this a note also? I know we're finishing today, but there's so much, you know, because this is, as I said, in this verse alone, we can teach this verse alone and then teach all of the Upanishad, because it's Atma Swarupa, the nature of the Atma, Atma Jnana, knowledge of the Atma, and Atma Phala. But I just want to make, before I conclude, I just want to make two observations, and I'll build on these. You know, see here that the question that is asked and the answer that is given in this text is not a Hindu answer. The student is not asking, how does the Hindu body function? What is it because of which Hindu eyes see, Hindu ears hear, Hindu tongues taste? It's a human question. It's a human question. It's a question that is applicable to every human being, qua human being, as human being. And the answer of the teacher, eye of the eye, ear of the ear, mind of the mind, is an answer that is applicable and speaks to every human being. The eye of the eye is that because of which every human being sees. The ear of the ear is that because of which every human being hears. The mind of the mind is that because of which every human being thinks. This is, for me, the beautiful universality of the Upanishads, that they speak to us as human beings, transcending ethnicity, transcending race, transcending gender, because as you will see also, this which is the eye of the eye, the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, is not masculine, it is not feminine, it is not neuter. Gender categories do not apply to it. It is beyond all gender. Distinctions, definitions, color, size, shape, form. This is a teaching meant for all human beings, and that is already signified in the very first verse itself. So it's 11:30. I honor time. I ask you to commit 1 hour to the study of the Upanishads, and you have done that. And so we will close here today. You know, it means that you have a lot to contemplate, to reflect upon. You know, we hear Sravana, and then we reflect, and we contemplate, and we seek to assimilate this knowledge. It's Upanishadic knowledge, as I said, it's a pramana. It's something to be understood, and you keep studying and listening until you have understood. Until in the mind is free from confusion and misunderstanding about the teaching. After that, you don't have to listen again. But for me, my teaching also is my teaching is a form of sadhana for me. Is my own spiritual religious practice. I always say, that study and teaching, learning is a spiritual practice. A spiritual practice is not something other than what we do here when we come together to study the text. That itself is sadhana. That itself is a spiritual practice. So when I share a text with you, I'm also sharing it with myself. I'm also seeking to deepen my own understanding through teaching and through reflection. So stay well, stay safe, everyone, until we meet again, and we will continue the exploration of this very beautiful Upanishad, the Kena Upanishad, which is a great gift to us from ancient times. Thank you.